Welcome you all to our fourth installment of the Global Studies Institute. I can't believe we're already in week 4. I hope you're all progressing okay with your Global Perspectives course as well as this. So if you've done 4 of these, you can actually go ahead and do your links. That's the minimum requirement to get your certificate. We hope you'll go through all of these, and we have some amazing topics coming up in the next couple of weeks. Next week, we'll be doing um, working for an international organization and talking about organizational culture. We have a executive from Protective Life based in Alabama, which is owned by Daiichi of Japan, and they're going to talk about working in that context and being an American, an Alabamian, and working with Daiichi. So that should be very interesting. But I have to introduce our new guest speaker today. This is Julia Lyons. She's from Easy City. Julie, I'm just going to turn it over to you. Nobody can do an intro of you better than you. So go ahead.
No problem. So thanks for having me, Stacey. Hi, everybody. So basically, my name is Julia Lyons. Yes, I'm from a company called EasyC Study Abroad. So I set up this company about 17 years ago in Ireland, in Cork, where I'm from. And we were looking after international students in Ireland for the past 17 years, mainly European groups and European students coming on international education programs and internship programs to Ireland. Over the years, we expanded. So we opened offices in Italy and Spain and London to be able to accommodate and run programs in those cities as well. And then in 2017, I opened EasyC Study Abroad as a sister company here in the US so that we could offer similar programs to US college students. So we now have programs running both faculty-led and internship programs in Ireland, Italy, and Spain on site again from next summer, most likely, and faculty-led programs as well. So we're working on a number of those for next summer and for the coming 2 to 3 years. So we kind of specialize, we're a small provider, and we specialize in customized programs, but keeping them at a very accessible cost so that students can really avail of international education opportunities and study abroad, internship abroad opportunities. So we're very, very passionate about it, very passionate about all things international, and that students get a chance to experience, have some form of global experience. And so today I'm going to speak to you a little bit about how you actually present your global experience to future employers, and then also a little bit about virtual internships, which we have started doing ourselves in the past year or so, and it's opened up a whole new world. It's become very exciting because they're hugely accessible, and particularly for non-traditional students, because they don't involve potentially 2 months away from home abroad and very high costs. So yeah, I'm going to get started on I won't talk too much about myself. I'll get started directly on the presentation. So we'll start first of all with just presenting your global experience to future employers, and then I'll speak to you a little bit at the end about virtual internships. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. I'm not a massive fan of doing everything by PowerPoint, but I just kind of wanted to capture a few things because otherwise I'll just be talking, and you may lose track, or I might lose track of myself. So let me just share my screen here with you, and I will get this started. Let's see if I can do this. Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So just shout me if you want to ask a question or you want to stop. I know there'll be time for questions at the end and things like that, but if there's anything, just shout out and I will stop me in my tracks. So in terms of your global experience, there's a couple of different aspects here that I want to talk about. It's not just about your resume. So it's generally about how you articulate your experience and changing how you articulate your global experience in general, because often, some of the research has shown that students who've had any type of global experience can often use one-word answers when they're asked, how was it? Like amazing, life-changing, awesome, fantastic. But when it comes to getting down to the real nitty-gritty of specifically how that adds value or how it's relevant in a job context or anything like that, they haven't practiced it. Or they haven't really thought in detail about it, so it doesn't come to them off the top of their head. So, we're going to talk a little bit about how you articulate your experience and making sure that you practice and think about it enough in advance so that you can really tie it in to any job or that you might be applying for. Then where you would put it on your resume. discussing where you would put it also in a cover letter, and then bringing it up in an interview. So those are the kind of basic key points I want to cover with you today. So in general, you want to be highlighting your international experience, but simultaneously showing how it can, make a meaningful contribution in the workplace. It's not enough just to explain that, you had a global experience. And I'm talking about global experience in the context of, it could be study abroad, intern abroad, it could be a virtual internship, or it could be a global competencies virtual exchange type of course, the program that you guys are doing at the moment that you've been exposed to. So that's the context that I'm speaking about this in. So it can be a very distinguishing factor on your resume, and it's important to highlight it, but you do need to be able to show how it can, bring that meaningful contribution to the workplace, and not just that you did it, let's say. So what we would normally, the way we normally approach it is that you would take it from a one-word experience. And I should just add at this point, I'll share this presentation afterwards with Stacey. So don't worry if I'm flying through or anything like that. I'll share this afterwards so that you have access to this presentation. So don't feel like you have to take everything down. So we usually start with, taking it from one word over to a memorable moment. So, you could be asked in an interview, or you could be asked in general in any kind of a networking situation or anything like that. How was your experience, or how was, what kind of a global experience did you have, and how was it? And again, like I say, people say, oh, it was life-changing, or it was very challenging, or it was amazing. So my challenge to you, I suppose, is in that situation, you need to look at the questions around that. So how, why, when, what, and who. So how was it challenging? So you can pick words from the list on the side, or you can choose your own words to describe how the experience was for you. So it was eventful, it was different, but then you need to push yourself a little bit further and say, okay, how was it challenging? Because you're going to be asked. If you use a word like that, you're going to be saying, okay, well, how was it? Give me an example. When was it challenging? Why was it challenging for you? And that's really important that you've kind of fleshed that out. And what I would suggest also is, when you finish any global experience, whether it be a program like this, or whether it be an experience abroad, take stock, take a little bit of time to reflect on the experiences that you've had, because often you will have the realizations when you come back or when you finish the program. And it's really important to write those down, because the further you move away in time from the program, it can be harder to recall them. So write them down, write those realizations down. They will come in handy when you're preparing for an interview, or when you're preparing your resume when you're updating your resume for a job application. So it's important that you write down those, reflections, those realizations of, personal learning, personal awareness that has come from that global experience. And because that will help you then to formulate and articulate when you're trying to really, bring forward what is the relevancy, or what's the value that you can add from your global experience to this job. So push yourself to be able to describe how was it challenging, because an interviewer will ask you, how was it, when was it, why was it, explain to me what you learned about yourself, from that, those kind of things. They'll want you to be able to articulate that. So that's quite important. So changing it from one word, to thinking about it more in this kind of context of memorable moments, or things that happened and why they were challenging or difficult or life-changing or wonderful, is very important. Then moving it more from the memorable moment over to the personal impact. So again, why was it memorable? So you have an example about something that happened during, your cultural experience. So you have an example about something that happened when you were exposed to some speaker at a program, or when you were working as part of a kind of a cross-cultural team, even virtually, or interning on site. Did you learn something new about yourself during that example? Something particular happened. Did you learn something new about yourself? Or in the context of the program, did you learn a new skill? And did you realize something about the culture that you were working with, or your own culture? And how does that impact on your future career? Have you changed any decisions based on that? Have you changed any ideas of what you thought you wanted to do, but actually this changed the course? Because showing that can show a lot of cross-cultural awareness. It can show a lot of, strong global perspective. If you say, in this situation, I really thought I wanted to do this, but after being exposed to these types of global perspectives, I now have a much better understanding, and I'm much more open to working in this kind of an international context. And, I feel I would be good at it because I'm much more culturally aware. Did you solve a particular problem? Did you accomplish something? Did you interact with people who are different from you in one way or another? So again, why were these things memorable? What was the personal impact to you? I think that's really key, because it shows awareness and it shows how that global international experience really ties into, the job that you're applying for, and how it's relevant. So I think that's very important. In terms of personal impact, then you want to be able to change that over to a transferable skill. So it's important, again, we go from it being amazing and challenging to what you learned about yourself, and then how you can take that skill forward. So, something like, when you were working on a project with other team members and employers, you learned a lot of teamwork. Again, communicating successfully in a new language or in a new culture, that's extremely important. So being able to look at that and say, I had people working with people on a team from various different cultures. We had to meet on a time zone that suited everybody, if it was a virtual internship, for example. And particularly with virtual internships, cross-cultural communication is even more important, because you have less of the body language, you have less of the opportunities. I mean, body language can create opportunities to, for mistakes and faux pas as well. But at the same time, there is a sense of being able to understand people when you're in their presence, and you can use a little bit of body language as well. That's taken out of the equation with the virtual internship. So being aware of other people's cultures, their backgrounds, and how that can impact on how they communicate, how they work. It's really important, because otherwise there can be a lot of miscommunication, and miscommunication can account for a huge, gap in productivity, or a gap in bringing results on time, or even achieving the very best results that you could from a team project, if there's too much miscommunication because of cultural differences. So becoming aware of that, and learning about, the people in your team and where they come from and their backgrounds, and taking the time to get to know that, and becoming aware of cultural sensitivity, that's all, things that you're normally exposed to as part of a global experience. So you really need to be able to value those. They are of a very high value in today's workforce. So that's why I want to make sure that people understand that you need to be able to articulate it. It's not good enough just to say it was life-changing and I worked with people from different countries. You really need to drive home the fact that you get it when it comes to intercultural communication, cultural sensitivity, foreign language ability, if you've been able to acquire that or practice that during your global experience as well. And then some of the other things, when it comes to the virtual piece, is the time management. Working, you'll be largely working on project-based things. So it's very important that, you're able to have self-discipline and work, to a particular time or to a particular schedule, because you're not going to be in an office with a supervisor who's coming to check on you on a regular basis. You will probably have set times to check in, and you'll have deadlines. So it's important to be able to show that, look, I had this global experience virtually, but these are all of the things that I learned in terms of, global perspectives, and also how to focus, how to work on my own, how to manage my time, how to deliver results. And that's going to be huge as we go forward into this, new normal of so much remote working. Companies are really looking for people who can work effectively from home, not just work from home, but actually work effectively, deliver on time, and communicate across various platforms. So that's that's also really important, to be able to articulate that transferable skill, because without that, you're not linking it in for the employer in the sense of your resume or in the sense of an interview. So also, I would say in generally in articulating your experience, you do want to kind of give a general overview of the soft skills that you have acquired. So they could be country specific. So if you've been dealing with a particular country or colleagues in a particular country, then you have, let's say, specialist global experience could be Irish culture, for example, or, if you were working for the likes of a Japanese company, you would have to become quite aware of their cultural sensitivities as well. So it could be very country specific, or they could be universal cross-cultural skills. So, things such as independence, curiosity, creativity, open-mindedness, adaptability, all of those things are very important when working as part of an international team nowadays. So moving on to your resume. When you're adding the international experience or your global experience to your resume, my advice is to create a specific section or heading called international experience or global experience, because that helps your resume to stand out to employers, that they can see immediately that you've had some form of global experience. That's very important. You also want to kind of, use your international experiences in as many places as possible within reason. Of course, your whole resume can't be entirely about your international experience, but you do want to put it in wherever it's relevant and keep linking it back into the competencies for the job you were applying for. So keep it relevant, keep it connected. It can't be just too general about your experience. Really keep the transferable skills and what they're looking for in that particular job. Find ways to link it back into that. And that takes practice, and that takes preparation in advance of any job interview or in advance of sending in any application. My advice is to tweak your resume based on the job that you're applying for, and tweak the international experience to highlight the parts that are most relevant for that particular job. Where to place it in your resume. Obviously, if it's kind of study abroad, it's going to be in the education section. If it's work experience, if it's internship or virtual internship, it's going to be in that work experience section, so your previous experience. So if it's education, you look at, did you earn credit? Was it part of your degree? Did you learn a concrete skill set? Anything like that. And then in the work experience, the type of experience that you gained, specifically if it was virtual, what kind of remote working skills did you get? So, working on different platforms like, Slack, Microsoft Teams, Google Hangouts, all of these different platforms that companies are really using now, showing that you have familiarity to work on those platforms very easily is already a big plus when you're going into any interview. It's almost like a given nowadays. Did you build a relationship with a particular organization? Did you develop a cross-cultural awareness as part of working with a multicultural team in different locations across different time zones? So all of those things you can list in the work experience section. And then you can also, obviously you need the details. So that's just the basic details of, make sure that you include the name of the institution or the employer. If there's an organization name, that's optional. The focus of the study or the course name, or the descriptions of tasks if it's in your work experience section, and then the term abroad, a GPA if it was necessary, any accomplishments, or the term that you worked abroad. Those things are very simple, straightforward things, but it's very important to include that detail in your resume to make sure that the employer can see exactly when you were abroad or when you interned virtually for this particular company. And that's very important, just to have all the details there as well. Then where else in your resume could you add information about your global experience? So I would be saying definitely look at some of the soft skills. So where you have a section in your resume where it highlights your skills and abilities, I would put some in there. You don't have to overdo it, but look at the most unique ones. Anything related to cross-cultural skills, working as part of a multicultural team, global awareness, that always stands out, particularly in the workforce nowadays. So being able to highlight those, working as part of a multicultural team, experience in cross-cultural communication, very important to list those. Then, did you attend any conferences or seminars during this experience? Also, you can list those as part of the extras on your resume, because some of them can be very relevant to the job that you were trying to get. It shows that you've gone the extra mile to educate yourself, or to attend extra conferences that were available to you or that were open to you. So make sure you include anything there that's of relevance to the job that you're applying to. Memberships, if you have any memberships in any professional organization, sometimes if you intern virtually or on site for an international organization, they will give you a membership to a professional organization that they are part of during your internship. They might even give it to you for a year or something like that, so that you're joined for the year. So list those if you have them, and definitely take advantage of them if that opportunity comes up. This is obviously a brief section, it's an outline, so keep it selective and keep it very tight and relevant to the job that you're applying for. So moving on to the cover letter. I hope I'm not moving too fast, but I am conscious of time. So feel free to stop me and ask me any questions, or you can ask me at the end. So cover letter basics, I'm sure you all, I don't need to tell anybody how to write a cover letter, I'm sure you all know, but when it comes to global experiences, it's important that you as much as possible, show, don't tell. So use descriptive and action words, give specific examples, and explain how those skills will transfer to the specific position. It's always about how your global experience can add value to the job that you're applying for. It's not just about, I had a global experience, it was great, it opened my mind. That's wonderful, but even me, you know, I work in this industry, but I'm also an employer. So I've hired people, like I hire people all the time, and this is also very important to me. I need to know how it's going to add value to the job I'm giving you or the job I'm interviewing you for. So make sure you always bring it back to how the global experience can add value in this particular job. In terms of the formatting, where I would put the global experience would be in the middle paragraph. So obviously your first paragraph is usually your introduction, your history, your confidence in how you're the best fit for the job, this, that, the other. And then the middle paragraph is where you would put in your experience and the global experience and how it relates to the position that you're seeking. That's very important. So where just to keep it just in the middle paragraph if possible in your cover letter. So for example, just a quick example, you know, I have written there so that you get a kind of an idea of the paragraph that you would, you know, this is a very basic one. You could obviously, you know, make it much more unique to your situation, but it gives you an example of, you know, while working or while interning virtually, I gained excellent skills in using remote work software, such as online communication tools for meetings and presentations, as well as project management software for tracking my tasks and work contribution. This experience allowed me to improve my skills working as part of a multicultural team and to navigate intercultural communication. I'm confident now that I could work easily as part of a global team across different cultures and time zones. It's direct, it's to the point. You can make it more unique to you, but it's just important to tick off some of those things that we often take for granted, that now I'm used to working with my colleagues in India or my colleagues in Ireland or whatever else. But those are really valuable traits and valuable experience that employers will value. So you do need to highlight them and make sure that you highlight them. So then bringing it up at an interview, basically, you know, again, I'm repeating a little bit, but it's so important that you add value. So how does it add value? And keeping it relevant. So the ability to identify and kind of articulate how your global experience add value is critical. It's absolutely critical in an interview. You have to, my advice would be look at the job's key kind of competencies or skills that they're looking for in advance and match them up with key findings and learnings and experience from your international experience. That helps you to kind of stay on topic, keep it relevant, and not kind of wander off in an interview about how great your international experience was. You need to make sure that it stays relevant to the topic. So that's very important. And that doesn't come, some people think that they're just going to recall naturally in an interview how their experience was and how great it was. Oh yeah, I'll tell them about my time in Spain, or I'll tell them about this program that I did where I worked with people from other cultures. You need to practice it, or you need to think about it at least a little bit more in advance. That's really important, because if you don't, it doesn't always come off the top of your head. It's important to kind of brainstorm and have an inventory of the things that you learned, the personal impact, the transferable skills, and how that's relevant to this particular job. So yeah, I'm just, you know, thinking that the employer in general doesn't really want to know about everything you did when you were abroad or everything you did during this program and how great it was and how wonderful it was and how it changed your life. They really want to see how it's relevant to them, and specifically how it's relevant to the job that you're applying for. So that's very important. Then in terms of the actual interview, often competency-based or structured interviews, it's where, you know, each question is designed to test a certain skill set. So the interviewer might ask you, how, in general, how do you handle stress? And then they'll follow that up with a question. Okay, give me an example of some situation where you dealt with stress well. So if you answer the first question saying, you know, I'm generally very easygoing and I deal with stress very well, then they're going to look for an example. So you need to be ready with that. And usually one of the techniques that's, you know, widely recommended is the STAR technique. So you have your situation, you set the context for your story or example, and this is in the context of international experience where you can bring in your global experience. So it might be, you know, where you had some miscommunication with a colleague, or, you know, you potentially, you know, thought that you might have offended a colleague in a cultural context, or the results of a project weren't coming together because of miscommunication, and, you know, these kind of situations. So set the context for the situation, for the story of the example, then explain the task that was expected of you. So what you had been asked to do or what you'd been asked to deliver, then the activity, so what you actually did, and then the result, how the situation played out. So that's very important to kind of, you know, round it off and bring it back to what you learned and what your transferable skills are out of that. So that's, you know, a good way of looking at it. So again, that's just some examples of how it, you know, some of the questions that can come up in terms of your global experience. So how do you adapt to new situations? You know, what are the top 3 lessons you learned while interning virtually? Those kind of things. So you know, you'll have your list of memorable moments, your personal impact, and you'll have your examples of intercultural communication, working with people from other cultures and such. So that's it in terms of where to kind of place it on your resume and where to and how to speak about it in your interview. So let me just take this one off. So basically, in terms of virtual internships, just very quickly, I won't keep you too long on this part because I know that we're already half past. So right now, so for example, in my agency, we deal with, you know, we've been doing on-site internship programs and faculty-led programs for the past number of years. And in the past year, due to COVID, we started doing virtual internships. And I'll be very honest, I think I mentioned this to Stacey previously as well. I was a little bit skeptical about virtual internships and how, you know, because we've been running on-site programs for so long, I was very aware of the cultural immersion and the general integration you get from working on-site at the workplace. So I was a little bit skeptical about how well it would work in a virtual context. And my thing is, I really want the students to always get really good value out of the program. I just don't think it's worth doing, you know, because there's the cost attached, because there's time attached and everything else. It's got to be of value and career-based value for them, you know. So, you know, I was, like I said, a bit skeptical, but we've done it over the past year and we've actually had great success and really great success stories with students who've, you know, started interning with companies and are hoping that within the next year they can go on site because they've developed such a great relationship virtually with the companies. And these are everything from large corporations right down to small startups, companies who never took interns before, who for the first time have the opportunity to do it because virtually, you know, doing it virtually, they don't need to have the extra office space to accommodate the person, but they do have the time to give to the person and they do have a project that they need them to work on. So, and we've never been so much in this time where many companies and organizations are pivoting because they've had to in some way or another because of the impact of the pandemic. So there's many new projects that are coming out of that, and that creates, you know, new opportunities for virtual internships as well. So in terms of the advantages, career skills similar to an on-site, but there's, you know, some difference. So obviously, you know, you have the opportunity to strengthen your career skills, what you hope to go into, explore different career options that you might be hoping to get into, but you're not sure if that's exactly what you want to do. I mean, you know, that's the kind of whole point of an internship as well, as getting that experience. We spoke about getting the experience of working remotely, so working across different time zones, using different technologies, new technologies that are coming out all the time, various task management, project management platforms, communication tools. It's just, you know, it's moved on so much from email and phone that it's, you know, there are so many different platforms out there now that companies expect you to be quite well versed in using. Then it gives you an opportunity to demonstrate your adaptability. So one of your soft skills, your adaptability in various situations. So having to maybe get up at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. to be on for a meeting once a week with your supervisor because he's in a different or she's in a different time zone. Being available to, you know, work with teams across different time zones and find a time that works for everybody. All of these kind of things, managing your own time, self-discipline, self-motivation. We talked about that, but those are things, again, not to be taken for granted, because even as an employer, I will see plenty of people who are really good, and you can tell they're really self-disciplined and self-motivated. And I'll see plenty who are not even aware, you know, they're ready for somebody to prescribe the tasks to them and watch them and tell them what they need to do. And in today's workforce, it's just not going to cut it. So you need to be able to demonstrate as well that you're well able to work effectively from home, that it's not just, oh yeah, I have the ability to work from home. No, I can deliver results working from home. I can get up, I can make my own schedule, I can, you know, stick to it, I can remain focused, and I can be part of the team, and I can make myself available to be part of the team, so that we get that, you know, good communication going between everybody. In terms of building your network, expanding your professional network, virtual internships give you the opportunity to do that as well continuously. So like I say, we have students, I have one student, one American college student that is interning with a company in Italy right now, doing product design for outdoor camping gear. And he's just made such a fantastic connection with that company. They're one of the most established companies in Europe in that space. They're very highly regarded, and they love him. They think he's brilliant, and he loves working with them, and he's hoping to intern in person with them. So what started as a 6-week internship has turned into more than 6 months. He just continues to intern for them. They're very happy. And also then, because you don't have any visa restrictions because it's virtual, so he's not on site, so he doesn't have to worry about visa restrictions either, which is great. So he's developing a fantastic network through them. I had another girl who was interning for an NGO, and they actually had her, I think I mentioned this to Stacey at a meeting last week, they had her speak they were at an event with the UN, and they wanted her to speak to a certain topic that she had been working on for them in terms of content on the policy that they were writing. They're an anti-drugs NGO. And so she got that kind of exposure in the space of a 6-week internship. I mean, it was huge exposure, it was massive. And this is a small NGO. So that's why she got really, really involved, and she got a lot of experience out of that. So then also, we talked about the cross-cultural and global perspectives, you know, companies that value employees who can work effectively from home, but probably the thing that I'm most excited about for virtual internships is the accessibility. I mean, they're just so much more accessible. It's so much more accessible now for people to intern because it's become the norm. So you can have students in rural areas now, you know, interning for very large international corporations that would have not been within their reach before because of geographic restrictions, or they may not have been able to relocate or anything like that. So now you can, you know, if you need to stay at home, you know, you don't have the cost of rent, you don't have the cost of a commute to an office. You know, with a virtual internship, you literally can apply to any company internationally to do an internship, which is just phenomenally exciting to be able to do that now. And then, you know, the time commitment can also be less. So a lot of the internships that are available right now are project based. So they will have you work on a particular project. So in some cases, we have students that can only commit 10 to 15 hours a week over the summer because they also have a job, and that's fine with the company, or that's fine with the organization, because that's all they may need in order for them to be able to work on a particular project for them. And generally, you know, you're not tied to a set timeline. You might have to check in once or twice a week with your supervisor at a fixed time, but other than that, your schedule is fairly open, which is great because it allows people to work part-time. It allows them to continue to study. So I suppose from this, I also want people to understand how accessible virtual internships are. You can, you know, sign up and start the program, and within 2 weeks, we can have you placed with a company, and you can be already getting that international experience to put on your resume. So it's not something that's very, let's say, bureaucratic in terms of paperwork or highly involved or anything else. It's a very simple application process to get up and running with a company. And like I say, these can be very small companies or larger corporations. And we work with each student to figure out what's going to be the best fit for them, because we're very kind of heavy on doing that at the start and talking to people at the start so that we don't end up with the wrong kind of fit, because it's really important. It's not just about, oh, I want to get experience in marketing. It's more about, okay, what kind of team environment do you want to be in? Do you want to be in a very big corporation where it's very structured, or do you want to be in more of a startup or a smaller business where you're going to have direct access to the CEO a lot of the time, but things might not be as structured, but you'll get maybe more opportunities, random opportunities will come up as part of it. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And then, yeah, just, I suppose the accessibility in general for non-traditional students is just, is wonderful. I think it's one of the biggest advantages and one of the positives. I mean, there's not a whole lot of positives to come out of the past year or so, but if we have to try and turn things around and look at things in a positive light, that's one of the things that's opened up many, many international opportunities and global experiences for people who may not have readily been able to access them before. So I think that's great. In terms of our own program, the EZC Study Abroad virtual program, it runs for a minimum of 6 weeks, usually to around a maximum of 6 months. And it's we organize a customized internship. So we do a lot of consulting with the student in the beginning, phone calls to really figure out and get to the crux of what you're looking for. Then we place you with a company, we do regular feedback and progress updates, and then we also include seminars and career chats. So career chats are one of the things that I developed, which I'm quite passionate about, is connecting you with people who work in the industry that you would like to work in. So if you tell me I want to work in human resources for a large international corporation, then I'm going to connect you with somebody who does that job so that you can pick their brains for 30 minutes. And that's obviously done over Zoom right now. Before, in our on-site programs, which will run again next summer, those as much as possible are face-to-face coffee chats. So you can really see where that person went in terms of their education, the journey that they took, how they got to where they are, because often it's not the straight road that you think you have to follow. And they may have come at it from a different angle, which is very interesting. And I've had students in the past actually go home and change their career chosen path, or, their idea of where they wanted to go based on some of the career chats that they've had, because it gives them a real insight into how that job actually looks on a day-to-day basis. And it's not always what they think it is. So that's also important to try and explore that. So we do that as much as possible so that you can really, really explore the career that you think you want to go into, and that the internship program is much more than just the internship that you're doing itself, but we try to expose you to a number of other contacts and organizations during your time so that you can expand your network and you can expand your knowledge of the chosen career field as much as possible during that time. That's really important. And then we also have a virtual cultural program as part of it. Again, that's just the fun stuff that we would have done in person, but we do online now. So in terms of the Ireland program, there are Gaelic language lessons, we do cooking demos, some traditional music and dance, and we do those virtually as part of the program, because it's still important to, as much as possible, to really immerse into the culture of the organization that you're working for, or where their headquarters are based, for example. And then we have our full support throughout the program in terms of anything that you need, or if there's anything going on in your placement that you want to discuss or anything like that. So, and we do the full feedback reports at the end, and your supervisor will give you your recommendation letters so that you have that going forward for reference purposes. So that's kind of it in terms of virtual internships. So overall, just my advice would be take time to reflect on any global experiences that you've had. When you're finished, write down any realizations. They will come in handy. Take an inventory of what you've learned, memorable moments, how you can transfer them into the impact it had on you personally, and how that then transfers into a transferable skill that you can use. Keep it relevant. Keep coming back to how you can, how this experience can help you to make a meaningful contribution in this job, in this company, how you can add value. And ultimately, the degree to which you can use your global experience in any kind of an interview situation or anything like that is just, it's down to the degree to which you leverage it. So make sure that you use it. I see somebody just noted as well, keeping a journal in your notebook, your computer. Yes, during the experience itself, because if you are abroad, particularly if you do go abroad next year, the year after, or even doing the virtual internship and communicating with people, it can be quite overwhelming. There'll be a lot happening. There'll be a lot of new experiences, a lot of things that you'll be, really, exposed to as well. So take the time to write those down, because you'll be sorry afterwards if you didn't, because it's not as easy to recall them when you're 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the line, and trying to remember how that would translate then into a skill set, for example. So that's kind of it from me. If anybody wants to contact me, feel free. I'm always happy to chat, even if it's just to, shoot some ideas, or you want to get some advice or whatever else. I'm very happy to chat. I love working with people in an international context. So you have I put my contact details in the presentation, and I'll share that with Stacey as well. And Stacey, feel free to share my contact details as well.
Thank you, Julie. Julia, will you take some questions now?
Of course, yeah, of course. Sorry, I hope I didn't go way too over time.
Oh, no, we're well within our time.
Okay.
So everybody, you got an expert here. Take advantage of it.
I'm looking in the chat as well.
Oh, everybody was giving advice in the chat.
Oh, okay, I'm going back to see what I missed in there. Okay.
I've got a comment, or thank you, Julia. This has been fantastic, rich bunch of info. I was just thinking about what you said, and I put it in the chat, that oftentimes we don't realize that we're having experiences that add value to other opportunities because we're doing them every day, or it's just part of the job, or it's just part of the class. And I was thinking that I deliberately was taking notes in the class today because I need to practice keeping notes on my activities, my actions, my new experiences, because it's the only way, and you have to start valuing them before you believe that you need to take notes on them. And that's the part that's often missing in employment, actually, is that the employer doesn't help the employee value the experience that we're having in the moment, even if it seems menial or tedious or stupid or basic. It's not. All work is valuable. All experiences have value. And it's a matter of all of us recognizing that and sort of looking with new eyes at what we do every single day and turning that into something that someone else can understand, an educator or an employer can understand, like use the language that they use so that they can understand the value that we are contributing.
Right, exactly. Put it into those skills that those are the buzzwords they need to hear, you know. And so, you know, you in your mind, you might be communicating it and thinking that you're communicating it quite clearly, but if you're not really hitting the buzzwords that they need to hear in the interview, such as, you know, how is it a skill? And truly, you know, you can be communicating with people from different cultures, and you can be having a small problem communicating with somebody where something's not getting through, and you choose then, okay, let me back up and explain this in a different way. So you don't speak their language. You both, for example, let's say speak English, but English is not their first language. So you're then trying to explain it to them. They're not getting what you're saying. So you step back and you explain it in a different way, and they get it. That small thing is, you know, it's cross-cultural communication, it's intercultural communication, and people don't think of it like that. You know, so you're right, you do need to note it down and not take for granted. I was able to really work with somebody from a different culture and navigate the language issues to find a different way to, you know, to get through this, so that, because that can really have an impact or an effect on the result of a project. And more companies, I was only reading some statistics the other day, more and more companies are finding that this cross-cultural communication, this multicultural experience, working as part of a multicultural team, is one of the biggest advantages. If they have people who have experience doing that or knowing how to do that, is one of the biggest advantages, because they are losing time and productivity on projects because things are getting lost in translation or in cultural sensitivities, or there's things that, you know, things that you can't pinpoint, but for some reason we're not getting to the result we need here. And often it can be down to that. So if you can really demonstrate, it's a small thing, but I know if somebody's not getting what I'm telling them, that I need to step back and explain it in a different way. And I can find ways to do that instead of just saying it one way in English and then saying it the same way in English and hoping the person's going to understand. If they didn't understand it the first time because English is not their first language and they're not overly familiar with what I'm saying, then I need to find another way to explain what I'm saying. So it can be something as small as that, but you're right, we need to value those things and practice articulating. It's one of the biggest things in study abroad and you know, global study experiences that they find is that, you know, students have amazing experiences, really valuable experiences and skills that they gain from this, but they don't articulate them when they come back in the best way. So they lose the opportunity of really driving home to the employer how that works, you know, how that makes them the best candidate, how that makes them stand out, and how that makes them of value.
Something that is that there's some good literature on about there is creating your own e-portfolio. you know, of things that you've done and experiences you had. And I know all of you are doing these reflections now, these recordings that you've made on the reflections through the global perspectives through the narratives of Ireland. Keep those, put those in your portfolio. If there's something that you're doing and you're creating yourself a social media thing, if you're sharing this, you know, a lot of employers look at your social media these days.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're valuing these experiences, put it out there. If you put it on your LinkedIn, if you put it on your, you know, your Facebook, or I mean, I think Facebook is now old school from what everybody keeps telling me. I'm the old school one. But you know, but you need to kind of rethink and reframe everything that you're doing. And so what you're doing here, even though we're not having as many of the human interactions as you would with like a virtual internship, you're still creating a dialogue in your own head and with Neve, and then occasionally we have these conversations. So it is still an interaction, and it's a reflection, and it's making you think, and it's changing your perspective, and that perspective is a very valuable thing to have.
Huge, absolutely huge. And it, like, just even being able to show that understanding, and you don't have to necessarily show that, you know, you did this or you did that, you know, being able to show that you just have that awareness or that understanding or that perspective of the global piece, of the multicultural piece, that alone gives an indication to an employer that you're pretty self-aware, that you know, you can have a broad perspective, and that you're not just, you know, if I have somebody who comes into an interview and they tell me that they did a global experience and I ask them about it and they, you know, they just tell me how great it is, that's lovely. I mean, we can shoot the breeze and we can talk about international experience, and that's wonderful. But if I have somebody who can come in and really articulate and tell me how, you know, they, you know, some understanding or new learning that they took away from that, or something they understood about themselves, or something they had never thought about their own background and how that affected or impacted how they communicate. So, you know, it could be something like, you know, I was raised in a particular background and I only noticed when I went to college and I was, you know, on a team doing a team project with some other international students, how my background impacted my perspective and how I communicated. Just being able to show and demonstrate that awareness alone, to me as an employer, you know, that puts that person apart immediately. You know, that's them, they're standing out for me. So that's why I think being able to articulate, and it's a skill in and of itself, being able to articulate, you know, your global perspective or your global experience. And just as with any other skill, it needs to be practiced.
Is there any other questions?
I have a question, Julia. So when for the virtual internships, do your qualifications have to match? Like, do you have to be a fit?
No. So
Okay.
that's one of the things, actually, it's a good question, because one of the things I forgot to mention is that what we're finding right now is we're having students, you know, who might be majoring in one area, or they have experience or skills in one area, but companies don't necessarily need you to have specific, you know, doesn't have to be a specific skill set. So if you want to explore a career option, we just need to be able to find a way to connect it with the company. So if you have zero kind of experience in their area, we need to be able to show passion or interest or something else, and, you know, and a reason for them to give you a chance to get experience in their industry. So that's definitely, that's absolutely possible. I wouldn't worry about that. So, you know, we have students that are, like I say, interning in particular companies that are not majoring in anything to do with that industry. So that is possible, yes.
There's a question from Camille in the chat about what is the best way for us to find available international internships?
Okay, well, so there's a number of different ways, I guess. So you can, there's a number of different platforms. So the likes of goabroad.com, gooverseas.com, and they list a huge amount of international internship programs through providers like myself. And then even if you Google, you know, international internships, you will come up with a number of different providers offering programs in that area. And then if you have a specific, I suppose, if you have a specific industry in mind, you know, you can also look up the top companies in that industry and see if they run their own internship programs that you can apply directly for. So you can go directly to companies, really with just online searches. And then you can also go through providers like myself who run a program where it's all organized, and we have access to a database of companies that we work with and organizations that we work with on a regular basis. Right now, we're working with companies in Ireland, Italy, Spain, and the UK. So those are our kind of specialist destinations for my provider, at least. And then there are other providers like myself that they focus on Asia, that they focus on other regions as well.
One thing I do want to tell everybody, Julia is working with Coastal Alabama Community College on a study abroad program for next summer for a week in Ireland and a week in Italy. It's a food tour, slow food. Isn't that correct, Julia?
It's a culinary slow food.
I want to go on that one and just eat my way.
Everybody wants to go on. I want to go on that one. I'm the one developing it, so I'm putting in all the nice things, the hope that I'll get there as well, and that I'll be able to be on it for a section. Yeah, it's so we're going to have the full details buttoned down hopefully in the next week or so that we can get information out to everybody. But yeah, it's together with Coastal Alabama and Auburn University, and it's a culinary slow food, a week in Ireland, so visiting artisan producers, visiting farms, foraging, doing all these kind of food activities, learning, a lot about the food chain. So we'll spend a lot of time down in my part of the country, down in Cork, in the south, and then we're going to go to northern Italy after that, so Florence, and hopefully we'll have time to visit the home of the slow food movement, which is in Piemonte in northern Italy, and we'll be taking in there's a very important conference that goes on every 2 years. It's been cancelled for the last 2 years because of COVID, so it's going to run next summer. Hopefully it's in Umbria, and that is on the on slow food, everything slow food, everything low food miles, everything food sustainability, and then we're going to do some truffle hunting, some wine tasting. Yeah, it's going to be a really.
If you're old enough, we have all ages in this group.
In Italy, yeah, I'm not sure what we'll do about the age bracket, because in Italy it's 18, in the States it's 21, right? So we might have to see how we write that one. But yeah, so definitely, yeah, it's going to be an amazing trip. And I'm also working on another one actually with a college in Utah, but I think we're going to be opening it up as well on Northern Ireland. So identity in a post-conflict region. So focusing a lot on young people and the identity of young people living in a region post-conflict. Very interesting. It's going to be, there's going to be some really interesting meetings, events, and seminars taking place as part of that. And then obviously a cultural program to go alongside it, visiting Northern Ireland and Dublin. So those are two of the ones that we're hoping to work on next year. And then also, actually, there's a third in Galway for event management and hospitality students. So we're going to be having them it's a 2-week program in Galway, and they'll do shadow placements, so like part-time internships in the mornings with various event management, so hotels, festival organizers, things like that. And then they will have a number of lectures, seminars, career chat type things, and cultural activities as part of it. So it's quite kind of a practical based 2 weeks where they get as much kind of practical experience as possible with some of the cultural fun stuff thrown in as well for good measure. So yeah, we're working on a few exciting programs for next year. It's nice to be working on programs, real programs again, that hopefully won't have to be cancelled. That'll be.
You had also made an offer to Alabama Community College students.
Yes.
That wanted to do virtual internships. Could that be extended to the California students?
Of course.
Participating in this?
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody
Well, I mean about the virtual internship discount.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's no problem. Anybody who's
Can you explain that to them?
Yeah, so right now our virtual internship program runs at $899, and that's so the program is a minimum of 6 weeks, but if your internship, for example, if you're able to intern for 12 weeks or the company wants to keep you and you want to stay on or whatever else, that's the flat program fee. We don't change it. So if you stay interning with them for 6 months, that's great. We're delighted. It's working out well. So there's one program flat fee. And like I said, that includes the customized placement that we organize, the virtual cultural program, the career chats, the seminars, and the full support throughout the program, and making sure you get all your letters of recommendation at the end and your feedback throughout. So we make sure that you get feedback not just at the end when you don't have time to improve upon anything, but also throughout your internship, so that if your internship supervisor is giving you anything to improve on, that you get the chance to do that and you can demonstrate that at the end. So the program is normally $899. So I think what did I say, Stacey? Did I say, I think I was going to do like $100 off or something like that?
Yeah, I think you said $799 for people from the that were participating in these programs.
Exactly. Yeah. So we can do that. So if anybody is interested and wants to do it, I actually have placements available right now. For the first time, I have piles of companies interested and not enough students. So it's always one thing or the other. So for anybody who's interested and wants to get started, it can be quite a quick turnaround. So even if you have some availability this summer and you want to start the program, we can do it. We don't start it on a set date. We start them, based on when people are available, and then we slot them in terms of the seminars and things like that. So it's very flexible. You can contact me tomorrow and I could have you started within a week or two. So yeah, so it's something to consider. I just want people to really understand how accessible it is. It's not something that, it's like a very lengthy application process and all of this kind of stuff. You could actually be getting international experience within a week or two and starting that and getting that onto your resume. Easy City is the Irish-based company, and EasyC Study Abroad is the US one. So if you're best to go on to easycstudyabroad.com, and you'll get the virtual internship page there. You'll see the details of the program. You'll see the fee, but just email me directly. And I'm going to put my email here as well. So the one that you should probably look at is this one, because the Easy City is more based for the European students that we deal with. And then this is email. So if anybody wants to email me directly, they can do that and I can look after you. And this is my phone number. So you can call me if you want to have a call as well. So,
all right.
Quick question, Julie, do you have another moment?
Yes, of course.
Is the slow food Italy, Ireland, available to those of us that are from California Community College?
Absolutely. Yeah, you just come as a transient through coastal Alabama. Yeah, it's totally available. Any trip can be open to anybody. If you want to do it for credit, they're tying some college credit to it. You would apply as a transient student to an Alabama school and just basically get permission from your Peralta District School to take that class to transfer it back. It's that simple.
Great.
You can always contact me about that, Karen, and I can connect you to the right people and help you with that. No problem.
A lot of people are interested.
Yeah, and we've gotten our trip to Japan approved. They're going to do 14 days in Tokyo, Kyoto, and Hiroshima next either May or June. And there's also a trip likely for Spanish in Peru.
Brilliant. That's great. Great to hear of so many trips.
Yeah, we're excited.
Finally. Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah. The slow food one, like I say, I'll have more information on that. I'm just buttoning down details. So as soon as I have it, I'll send it out through Stacey as well, and that will give more information. Right now, the plan is even to have it open to friends of the college. So so that it's kind of broadly open. So we're just kind of, as I say, finalizing those details, program fees, things like that, trying to get it to the best, most reasonable price point so that it's as accessible to as many people as we can. It's 2 countries, so that can be a bit challenging, but we're going to do our best to keep it within reason so that it's highly accessible. That's really important. So yeah, I should have an answer on that kind of by early next week. I actually was going to speak to Ed today about a few things on that, so hopefully we'll manage to get it finished off.
Okay. Well, everybody, I think you'll agree this was good too, so that you can actually figure out how to use what you're learning here. Julia, thank you so much for your time. And this will be recorded and shared. So some of the others who didn't make it today will still be watching this. And so you may be hearing from others that are not quite present today. So.
Sure. And